here where I am. So if you are having a pretty day also, hopefully you are able to get outside and enjoy it. Um, so before I get started, I am going to tell you all that you need to paper and a pencil. You will not need any kind of other materials today, just that paper and pencil for you to be able to work. And let me grab the text. I forgot to move it over here. So I'm getting an up close and personal shot there with the camera. So let me tell you what we're going to do today. This is kind of a very basic comprehension strategy for boys and girls to remember. It could be nonfiction or a fictional text. It doesn't really matter which one you use, but I am going to use a nonfiction text again today to and share part of it with you. But what we're doing today is just the 5 W's and the H. And if you are unfamiliar with the 5 W's and H, I put them over here on the side. I said who, what, when, where, why, and how. So you can ask these type of questions as long as these start with one of these words, then you can ask and answer any of these questions. And questioning is something that is very important for readers to be able to do. It shows that you have comprehended. It shows that you have prior knowledge of something that you maybe weren't certain about before. But it also allows you to maybe even quiz and question someone else that you are trying to review with. So the text that I am going to use today is one that I have in my library at school. And this, honestly, boys and girls, is probably one of the hardest and saddest books that I own. It came out in 2006. And so there have been things that have actually changed since this book came out 14 years ago. But it is called Almost Gone, The World's Rarest Animals by Steve Jenkins. And I wanted to share this text. I'm doing a little bit today and then again tomorrow, because tomorrow is Earth Day. Every April 22nd is Earth Day, where around the world we stop, we think about what we can do to make our world a better place and how we can prevent animals such as these in this book from either becoming extinct or, taking care of them so that the populations grow to a safer place than what they were, and also taking care of the environment that we all live in. So that's something that we really need to be thinking about this week. How can we take care of our earth? So I'm going to share some of this text to you. Again, it's by Steve Jenkins. And things may have changed in this text, as I said, since it started, this book was developed. So it says, the first page says the crested shell duck. It's found in China. And in 2006, there were fewer than 100 of these birds left. It says the crested shelduck was once found throughout much of East Asia. It has been hunted for food and for its beautiful feathers until it's become one of the most endangered birds in the world. And then let me show you this, because this is important for readers to understand. Next to, as like the first one here, do you see what is something called an asterisk? And the asterisk here tells us that somewhere else on this page, there's something that we need to read. It takes our eye We have to match it to down here. Do you see where the asterisk is down here? So we have a side note down here, a text feature for us to help read our nonfiction text. And it says about the number of animals left. Animals in the wild are hard to count accurately. The numbers given for each animal in this book are best guesses in 2006 of the scientists who study them. These numbers don't include, so these are animals only in the wild. These animals do not include, or these numbers do not include, animals living in zoos around the world, just those left in the wild in their natural habitats. As people become concerned and take action, many of these numbers will increase. However, others will go down since it's too late to help all of these animals recover in this book. So I'm going to pick out some of them to read. Oh, but first, we have an introduction. There's a bird perched outside your window, and it's a small bird with a black head, a white throat, and a gray body. It is a chickadee. Suppose this bird and all the other chickadees in the world died out and became extinct. Would it matter? Well, you'd never again see a chickadee sitting outside your window or flying or feeding its young or building a nest. You'd never again hear a chickadee chirping. And that would be sad. But there is so much more to it than that. So this shows how one, let's say, a chickadee type of bird, and here is an illustration. Now, I'm not saying that chickadees are endangered, but Steve Jenkins is giving us the example of, let's say, chickadees go extinct. What will happen? How will that impact things? Chickadees eat insects. Without chickadees, there would be more insects. Some of those insects would attack the plants in your garden. Others, such as mosquitoes, carry diseases that might make you sick. Chickadees also eat fruits and berries. Their droppings spread and fertilize the seeds, so they spread the seeds around our environment. Hawks eat chickadees, so they are not only predators for insects, but they are prey for bigger birds. Without chickadees, the hawks might not have enough to eat and would starve or go someplace else. Hawks also eat rats and mice. Without hawks, there would be more rats and mice. So this would totally mess up a food chain. Each chickadee carries thousands, even millions of tiny mites, lice, and bacteria on its feathers and inside its bodies. Many of these creatures can live nowhere else. So without chickadees, they would die. Every living thing is connected to many other living things, often in ways we don't understand or even suspect. And once an animal or a plant is gone, it will never come back. All the living things that interact with it will never be the same again. Some of them won't be able to survive themselves. Chickadees, as it turns out, are not in great danger, but many other animals are. All over the world, people are building roads and cities, turning open land into farms and ranches and polluting the air and water. This has put millions of animals at risk. Some are critically endangered and may soon become extinct. Some can be saved if we act quickly and help them. For others, though, it is already too late. Here are a few of these animals that are almost gone. Okay, so to start with here, we have the Grand Cayman blue iguana. And again, these animals were around 14 years ago. Maybe they're better. Maybe they're worse. Maybe they're gone. So this is the Grand Cayman blue iguana, found on the Grand Cayman Islands in the Caribbean, which is the Caribbean Sea part of the Atlantic Ocean. Fewer than 25 left in the wild 14 years ago. It says this iguana is found on just one island in the Caribbean, also pronounced the Caribbean. The blue iguana is 3 to 4 feet in length, weighs 15 to 20 pounds, and can live to be 50 years old. Its body turns bright turquoise during mating season. Blue iguanas eat fruit, flowers, and leaves. They have been hunted by people for food, run over by cars, and had their nests destroyed by wild dogs. It's a beautiful iguana, it looks like. The northern hairy-nosed wombat. Now, when I went to Australia, and I'm going to actually talk a little bit about an animal in Australia tomorrow to start my lesson. But wombats are native to Australia. So this is one kind of them. It's not the only kind. But fewer than 60 of these were left in the wild, according to scientists in 2006. The northern hairy-nosed wombat got its name from the short bristly hairs that grow on its face. It is stocky, a powerful animal about 3 feet long. It uses its strong front claws for digging burrows and finding roots to eat. Sheep and cattle ranching have destroyed most of this wombat's territory. It is now found only in a tiny corner of one national park in Australia. So there was like a group of 60 of them living in one national park in Australia. Okay, let's see. Some of these are just so sad. I'm trying to find a good one here. Okay. The Bactrian camel, found in Mongolia and China, fewer than 500 left in the wild. So you might say, well, I see camels all the time in zoos. Well, there are two kinds. And one starts with a D and it has one hump, and one starts with a B, the Bactrian, that has 2 humps. So it's easy to remember the two kinds. If you flip the letter B on a side, it has 2 humps. If you flip the letter D on a side, it has 1 hump. And the one with 1 hump is much more common than the 2-hump camel. Bactrian camels are the 2-hump relatives of the more common 1-humped camel. They live in the harsh deserts of Central Asia. Their humps contain stored fat and allow these camels to go for several days without food or water. Their long, shaggy coats keep them warm in the cold desert nights, and they're able to close their nostrils to keep out blowing sand. In many places, domesticated camels have crowded out their wild Bactrian cousins. Let's see. The Iramote cat, found in Japan, fewer than 100 left when this book was published. This wild cat lives only on one small island in Japan. So Japan is made up of more than one island. So this cat is found on one island in Japan. It's about 2 feet long with legs and a tail that are short compared to its body. The Iramote cat hunts at night and feeds on small mammals, reptiles, birds, and fish. It has lost much of its habitat to human activity and faces competition from feral cats, which are pets that have gone wild. So if something is feral, like it would be a wild cat or house cat or dog that doesn't live with anybody. It's a stray, but it has returned to its wild roots. Okay. All right, we have the northern right whale in the Atlantic Ocean, and fewer than 350 left. Oops, I need both pages here. Fewer than 350 were left in 2006 in the wild. Before they were hunted nearly to extinction in the 1800s, there were as many as 50,000 of these huge mammals living in the North Atlantic. So this would be close in the northern part of the world, close to the Arctic Circle and the North Pole area. This whale was given its name by whalers who, finding it easy to capture and full of valuable oil and blubber, called it the right whale to catch. So because it had so much blubber that could be melted down for oil in the 17 and 1800s, that's how fishermen used to hunt their lamp, or used to put oil in their lamps, and they would sell it too. And it came from blubber from marine animals, including whales. So it was the right, meaning the correct whale to hunt because it had such valuable oil and blubber in it. The northern right whale has been protected from whalers since 1935, but its habit of floating on the surface of the ocean makes it a frequent victim of ships' propellers. So even though it's not allowed technically to be hunted anymore, it still can unfortunately die. And this one, if I remember correctly, a few years ago, I read it made national news that this animal did go extinct. So this is the Abington Island tortoise, found in the Galapagos Islands. And there are many types of Galapagos tortoise, but this was one version, and there was only one left. And like I said, I believe Lonesome George here did pass away a few years ago. So I believe this tortoise is officially extinct now. It says this tortoise, nicknamed Lonesome George, meaning he's all alone, is the rarest animal in the entire world. He was. He's probably the last living member of his species. Abington Galapagos tortoises are big enough to ride on. The males can be 4 feet long and weigh 500 pounds. The tortoises were overhunted in the 1800s by sailors who caught them by the thousands and took them on board their ships for food. So the sole reason that this species went extinct was because it was so overhunted and because of what humans chose to do to it. Gives us something to think about, doesn't it? And then here at the end, there are some other animals that are gone forever, or that they believe are gone forever. So it says these animals are extinct. There's little or no chance that they will ever be seen again. Because the web of connections among living things is so complex, meaning it's so connected, we don't understand all the consequences of a species becoming extinct. We do know that something unique has been lost and will never be replaced again. So this is the stellar sea cow. It is no longer living. You might say, well, that looks like a manatee, and there are manatees. Well, yes, there are. And there are many different zoos and programs that are working to save manatees. I know the Cincinnati Zoo currently has 2 male manatees that they work with groups in Florida. They rehab some, and then they release them back into the wild. So currently they have 2 young males that they hope by this fall they will be able to release. They are taken care of right now. But this sea cow, this type of manatee, they believe went extinct in 1768. And it was found in the Bering Strait, which is a little piece of ocean in the North Pacific Ocean that is found between Alaska and Russia. It says the sea cow was huge, 25 feet long and 8,000 pounds. It swam in the cold waters of the Northern Pacific Ocean. Trappers collecting seal furs hunted the stellar sea cow for food. Are you hearing are you seeing a pattern here that many of these animals were overhunted for food? They weren't protected. The last of the stellar sea cows died just 27 years after being first described by the naturalist George Steller. So he wrote about it, described it, and within 27 years, it had gone extinct because of humans hunting it. And then these animals, unless they have missed something, there are a couple animals here that they believe are extinct, but as of 2006, they had not been seen in quite a while. So this is the Guam flying fox, found in the Mariana Islands, and was last seen in 1974. Is it extinct? Very possible, but they're not 100% sure. They believe it is extinct. It's as little is known about these animals. The Guam flying fox was a kind of bat named for its pointed face and its large ears. It fed at night on flowers and fruit. It is suspected that this bat and many other animals on Guam were killed off by an invasive species. Invasive species means it's an animal that is not native. It was brought there or came when it shouldn't have. The brown tree snake, which was introduced to their island home in the 1940s. There is little hope that any Guam flying foxes live today. But there are some positives. These animals are making a comeback. I know that I have been learning about animals from the Cincinnati Zoo, and one thing that they said manatees have made a big comeback since they were very endangered even when I was young. Everyone was save the manatees. And so many zoos and people started being very careful, especially boaters being very careful about where they would live, in the Florida Everglades. And they have made a comeback. Also, I learned recently that the bald eagle, and we have used to never see bald eagles when I was young in the wild. Now you can see them in the area. And I just learned recently in the 1970s, they became critically endangered in the United States, and they're the United States' animal symbol. So people started really working to protect them. They were almost killed because of farmers using a pesticide that they thought was a good pesticide, and it wasn't harmful to humans, but it made eagle shells completely flimsy and easily breakable. So they weren't able to reproduce. They weren't able to have babies. And once they outlawed that pesticide, the eagles have come back and they are no longer endangered at this point. So we are doing good things. Absolutely. We have to think about that. But books like that may be hard to read. Books like this, Steve Jenkins' Almost Gone, are very important for us to read and learn about. Because if we don't, then nothing will get better. It is our job to make sure that we are taking care of the world that we live in. We as humans are the most high functioning mental animals in our world. We are not the highest function physically by any means. We are I always tell my boys and girls, middle of the road. Many animals are much bigger and stronger. There are ones that are smaller than us, but many, many animals could beat us physically, and we have to be very careful around. But mentally, we are the strongest animal. It is our job to make sure that we are taking care of our earth and everything else that's in it. So what I'm going to teach you today, the 5 W's and the H, we are going to write some questions and answers to that using our text, Almost Gone. And the key with this, you could write some questions based on anything from this text, as long as they start with who, what, when, where, why, and how. So we're going to come up with 6 questions. The first one I'm going to do is who is in charge of protecting animals? Well, I just answered that. Who did I say is in charge of that? We as humans. So I can restate and answer that underneath it. Humans, in this case, I'm going to answer and then restate. You can do that sometimes to make your question a bit more fluid in your sentence. Humans are the highest functioning animal. And when I say highest functioning, I mean highest functioning mentally by our brains. So humans are the highest functioning animal. We need to protect other animals. Okay, so there's my who question and answer. Number 2, I'm going to write a what. So I could say, what was this text about? Okay, so those are my question and answer for the first one. So what was this text about? Restate and answer. This text was about the world's rarest animals. Or it was this text, so I need to stay in the same verb tense and say was. This text was about the world's rarest animals. Okay, number 3, when. When, that would be a time period. When did, well, I could literally ask a question that was found in the book, a right there question. I could say, well, when was the northern right whale protected? Or when did the northern right whale become protected? We know it's still accidentally killed. And there may be people that are killing it illegally. That happens too. Something called animal poaching. And if people get caught doing that, they go to prison, and they should, because that is totally illegal. So we can say, when did the northern right whale become protected? So you could ask a question about something that is actually found in your text, a date, something like that. So when did it become protected? The whale has been protected since 1935. It's a right there question. I'm looking at my text and I can touch it. Has been protected since 1935. Okay, so 3 questions down, 3 to go. I've run out of some room, so hopefully you have these down. If you don't yet, then you can always go back and rewatch to get down your answer here. Okay, so I'm going to erase this. And I'm going to write number 4 up here, which we're going to do a where. Where? How about where are endangered species found? Well, That's an easy answer. Where are endangered species found? They are found all over our world, right? Restate and answer it. Endangered species are found all over the world. It would be easy if we could just say, well, they're only found in this one place. So if we just take care of all the animals here, then we'll have no more endangered species. But it doesn't work that way. They're found everywhere. Okay, next one. Why? I could say, why do animals become endangered? There are many reasons, but we can list some of them, right? Why do animals become endangered? And no, we can't just write one word. We can't just write humans. We have to really explain why they do. Animals are endangered. There's my restate. Animals are endangered because of overhunting. Well, one was an invasive species, right, that we read, that they believe became extinct. Overhunting, we can say, by humans. Invasive species. Oop, I misspelled the word species. Invasive species killing them, comma, and let's do one more. And, well, we said overhunting by humans, invasive species killing them, or loss of habitat or environment, right? You could say either. Both those words would be interchangeable. They would be synonyms. I'm going to say, and from loss of habitat. If you wanted to say environment, go for it. And then the last one is how. So this is where, boys and girls, we can really extend the text. The 5 W's are often right there, questions. But the how asks us to explain. So we can say, how can we help animals survive? So that's my question. How can we help animals to survive? Well, I could write my answer up here, but instead, I think it would be better if we thought about it for a second, talk about it. Because a how answer usually can't be answered in 1 or 2 sentences. A how answer would need to be answered in 3 or 4 or 5. So that's my challenge for you today. I want you to try to write, let's say, at least 4 to 5 sentences. How do you think we can help animals in our world? You have all the materials and all the questions that you needed here on the board. And if you need to go back and get some ideas by listening to some of the almost gone, how they became endangered, go back and watch the video again. But What are your ideas? How can we help animals that need to survive? That's what I have for today. I want you to really be thinking about how we can help our earth this week. We need to not think about it just today, but we need to really think about that every day. So I will see you tomorrow on Earth Day for an Earth Day activity. And until then, toodle poodles, goodbye. I'm proud of you. Go out and save the world today. Love you. Mwah.